say Neil Gaiman were to come out with some new material in the future, would this affect you from taking in that new material? Say if he came out with new
question. I think it would make it harder to take it in because not so many people are not so many venues are going to carry it just because of it.
So that's also an important part of this too. About a part of the story is that I think they're already not like carrying him. They're his publisher, like Dark Horse Comics. Has already dropped them.
Yes.
So the potentiality, and this is the you brought up cancel culture before. So he still has his day in court. He's been accused.
Yes,
I think it's also a civil suit. So I don't think there's any kind of criminality.
He's totally guilty.
No, I think it's the same as Jonathan Majors being Kang and then being not Kang because of whatever happened.
Yeah.
Then it was whatever proven that he wasn't wrong.
Yeah.
And now they're kind of bringing him back in to be Kang.
And that's the
And
shame
it's
of
like a little shitty, but it's also, I get why they kind of did it, but at the same time,
it's an easier thing in today's culture if you're a big conglomerate corporation, what have you, to just completely cut out the person that's in this shit and then slowly maybe roll them back in. There's a lot of travesties that have been done in the name of cancel culture. Now, I'm not saying this in particular, this is what's happening. He may have done this. He may not have done this. I'm not sticking my neck out for the guy. But there are people in the past who have been falsely accused of things and had their lives completely fucking ruined. One case of that is the Duke lacrosse team that way back 10 years ago, they were charged with raping this one woman and she lied about it the whole time. So that's not the crux of the conversation, but it is an important point.
Even beyond that, though, I mean, like, I'll pose this complete hypothetical. Someone's accused of something. Let's just say that they actually did it, right? Factual, so on and so forth. But they're a great artist. Would you deny yourself their art? Would you deny other people?
Well, that's also an important part of that
Should
too,
they be
because
in jail?
art is subjective.
Art is subjective.
Well,
and
I don't mean that.
Wouldn't that put it in a different perspective, looking at their art, even in
I'm saying
that's
retrospect?
an important point by Moses, because since art is subjective, don't you inherently, now that you know this about the artist, immediately graft that onto the art itself?
Because that's what the art is already entailed with, is because of the artist.
So then what you're saying as a response, if I'm understanding right, is that the art that a person creates includes them.
I think it kind of has to.
It kind of,
like
to a degree.
For you to create art, it has to. Well, because you don't make art that has nothing to do with you.
I mean, I agree with that, but I would disagree with that.
So it would have to come from somewhere, and if you're creating something, and you're the creator, it's going to come from something in you. Whether you believe in it or not, or like maybe it's just how you're raised. Or like maybe you don't believe in like racism, but you were raised in a racist family, so everything you're doing is somehow racist.
Hitler.
Can we please stop bringing that?
Sorry, Dan.
But then you got to look at all of everything they've done and like, is anything there worth doing? Because what they were doing it out of is deplorable. And like it's also a case by case basis. But like if a person is inherently deplorable, is any of their shit good?
I mean, I agree with the idea that, of course, all art is subjective. It's entirely based off of how you personally feel about it. It's very personal. But
a lot of that is swayed by what you know of who created it.
Well, I guess it also depends on the person too. If you do or do not attach that baggage to the art.
I've looked at beautiful art that I had no idea who painted it or drew it or wherever the case.
I think the most important part of this is the question that you posed, Justin, which was the new art. I can very easily listen to Beat It and not think of Michael Jackson potentially being, I can't say that word on YouTube. I can separate that because I've had
the problem with my Hitler thing.
Yeah, there's a lot of words can't say on YouTube.
Sorry, Dan.
One of them is Hitler.
Sorry, Dan.
But I can, since I have that past knowledge with this music, particularly like Beat It, and freaking
pretty much anything
Thriller,
Michael Jackson's done.
and
For the most part.
you can listen to that and be like, I don't associate with that. But then if you listen to like if something new came out, post that, you'd be like, okay, buddy, what do we got going on here? And also if it's like a little like on the nose kind of thing.
But with Michael Jackson in specific, when all those allegations came out, they would talk to people in the streets and like, oh, are you gonna stop listening to Michael Jackson now because of these allegations? And most of them were like, nah.
No, yeah.
I'm still got because I love the music.
Well, that might be a different thing entirely.
Like it might
too.
be a different because he's kind of a super icon.
Yeah.
Then,
Well, also he was like the last of a kind. Like maybe Taylor Swift right now is the only thing that even approaches what Michael Jackson was in the 90s.
I'd like to go in a different direction with it then.
Go ahead.
Sure.
What I would say then is, obviously, we hear about these high-profile cases where somebody, in the same way as I went for this extreme, the media is also latched onto various extremes.
Absolutely.
Where the juice is,
it's also why we don't hear about Neil Gaiman anymore at all. Like any of it. Like
So
it's not there.
I would also say it's like, and I don't want to like conflate real things that people do wrong with, bullshit that we all regularly do. But I think that when we're talking about, celebrities or people whose names we know, when we're viewing that, or is any of us living in some sort of illusion where they're not regular people who fuck up all the time and do stupid
I
things?
think a lot of people.
I think
that's
the
illusion
only way people live.
But that's
is
also-
that they
so
are.
then would we judge them differently based on that, or do you just need to hear it from the media?
But also at the same time, under that, if you found out I did something complete like into the scope of this, you'd be
I
like,
always got your
I don't,
back down.
I don't think I want to hang out with Dan
Never
anymore.
gonna know. They're never gonna know about those cats. We're taking care of
Well, I mean, like none of you have any of these allegations, do I know? And I don't really want to hang out with you.
We can tell. Moses.
But I think the point that Moses was making about like Michael Jackson in the 90s as well is that was kind of more of like a hero worship. So it didn't matter what they could potentially
It
do.
didn't, but
That's
it
kinda
did,
what I mean,
and it
though,
was a
too.
weird thing, like where Neil Gaiman is kind of a niche,
Yeah.
kind of following. Where Michael Jackson is
Well,
like
definitely by comparison, absolutely.
everybody knows who the fuck Michael Jackson is.
Yeah.
Not everybody knows who the fuck Neil Gaiman is.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different in at least that respect of ideology, where you're like, oh, Michael Jackson, and then Neil Gaiman. Like,
I mean, Neil Gaiman is only he's
Come
not
up-
full
yeah.
bore into like, but like
Sandman,
did
the
very
Netflix
well
thing
on
is
Netflix.
kind of the thing that really shot him into the
and even
forefront.
before that, to a degree, American Gods. Like
That was canceled quick too, though. I think there was like
ran
what,
a
2
couple
seasons.
I think. Yeah, 2 seasons, maybe 3. I can't remember distinctly, but as opposed to everything else.
And that was kind of Grant Morrison. He's a long-winded guy.
Oh my god!
It's
That book Pat gave me that he wrote. Goddamn, it's long.
just mumble low.
My point would just be very simply that the way in which we judge people is so steeped in how we perceive them within our societal structure. And I think that that's unfair in the sense of that, like, I do want if somebody's fucking doing something horrible, they're raping people, they're diddling kids, they're doing what they're doing, of course I want them to be prosecuted and have to basically not be
Pay
able to
their
do
due,
that anymore.
yeah.
That's
Like,
that's
get their penance.
Yeah, exactly. Everybody who like we associate with would have that sentiment about it, right? But we put such a fucking microscope on people who are celebrities in this way.
Yeah, public facing people.
Yeah.
Exactly. And this is a thing that really skews it so much, where it's like, would you still enjoy their music? Would you still enjoy their writing, and so on and so forth? And I think that I think that's a real problem for any human being. And I've had this personal, where I'm thinking the same thing, like Michael Jackson. I got my questions.
Yeah.
I don't have I'm not rigid the way that some people are, but I've got my questions. And the bottom line is that his music is great. His music is great.
You can't.
I love his music, period. Do I love him as a person? Well, that's to be decided. I don't know, because I don't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
You can love one thing, and that's why I brought up the extreme example of the example that I brought up. It's that you can like something about somebody and say that they're achieving in this particular realm, but that they're failing in everything else.
Yeah.
And we do that as individuals. We do that with our friends. And I think that it's so shameful that we don't do that more universally when we apply to other people.
I think
the bottom
that's-
line is that, I look around at you guys, and it's like, you guys succeed. You guys are my dear friends. You succeed at very specific things. And there's other times I'm like, oh, fuck that up.
Well, that's why I think it was interesting what Justin was saying. Like, if he puts out something new. Should I just completely avoid it? Where like we're talking about Michael Jackson and Hitler, and like neither one of them are doing anything new. So it's like kind of a sway. Like Neil Gaiman is still alive, so there is a potential for him to put out new material. Where the rest of these, and this is where Michael Jackson is not alive, and
and the other one.
He didn't.
This is all alleged at the moment, like,
and it is also alleged
in court, like, and it's that's. I know people in general could be mad at me for even just saying that,
but like
I try to force myself to realize there's more nuance than just black and white.
The truth is usually in the middle.
Yeah,
that's why I like bringing up Jonathan Majors because that was a newer thing. He got kicked out of Marvel. For. I forget exactly what it was, but he was allegedly beating his girlfriend or something, some kind of domestic abuse. Yeah. And that turned out to...
Did she deserve it?
It turned out not to be true.
Edit that out then.
Oh, we don't do that anymore.
It turned out not to be true.
Listen, if
Oh no, this is live.
If we're editing stuff out, then I want another drink.
And now, like, then they said, Robert Downey Jr. is now going to be Doctor Doom, even though he's just Iron Man. It's like, all right, weird, but whatever. And now they're like, oh, no, Jonathan Majors, you're cleared? Okay. Hey, buddy, where were I? Like, oh, I'm sorry, I left you outside. I didn't mean to. I know it was cold, but let me bring you back in. I just didn't realize you were outside.
There's a lot of cases like that where we just are in such a rush. And it's not even just corporations. It's our culture. It's Western culture where we just jump. You were accused, and therefore you're automatically guilty. Something that happened.
It's no longer proven innocent until proven guilty.
It's guilty until proven innocent.
And that's just because of a court of public opinion.
Yeah.
And that weighs more heavily than actual laws. Because even when laws get like somebody gets accused and guilty. What happens? Too much.
I mean, this is a totally different conversation. Yeah. But the bottom line is that, yes, in this culture, and I personally do the same thing. When a woman accuses a man, you side with the woman.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's and she could be a liar.
Yeah.
You don't know.
And you know,
but I do the exact same thing.
Men lie, women lie.
Yeah.
You know,
so everybody lies.
So if you're not
but that's her standard.
Yeah.
Humans are terrible.
Yeah.
Get rid of them.
Yeah.
All of them.
If I were about cats.
Yeah, fuck yeah. More cats, less people.
More cats, less people. All right, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
I'm on board. We don't agree often.
And here we are.
Yeah, here we are.
And I pose that question because, like, I really don't know.
Yeah.
Like, there's all this going on and stuff like that. Like, there are people that absolutely have gone out and said, you know, he's persona non grata, his work no longer exists to me, all that stuff like that.
Well, the bottom line is that...
And how do you judge his past work? Because granted, Sandman is a kind of weird.
Well, yes, it's
thing.
Weird. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh no, it's great, but it is a weird thing that it's not for everyone.
And just to be honest, like even still for me, like I hold his work in such high regard.
Yeah,
it's
well written.
Yeah. People's work, what they do, you know. In other words, like your judgment of a human being should be, in my opinion, separated from whatever it is that you took of value from them. You could meet the biggest piece of shit on the planet, and they could invent the wheel. You know, should you not employ a wheel because you hate that person?